How to succeed at higher in languages. The same applies for French, German, and Spanish. It's really just the same arrangements for all three languages. The first piece of general advice is that students need to revise the vocabulary that they're given during the course regularly, because obviously this helps build up their knowledge and their understanding of the language when they read it or listen to it. They will get quite a lot of vocabulary typed probably on sheets, and some of it will be written down by hand. It should be stored in their ring binder folder. It needs to stay organized, obviously, so they need to get rid of stuff periodically that they don't need, so it's easier to find things. Second piece of advice is to use a dictionary, a foreign language dictionary, when they do reading tasks. They must avoid using apps like Google Translate. The reason being that the dictionary is the only tool they're allowed in exams, and they need to get quick and effective at using it. The way to do that is by practice. There are 4 skills in the SQA exams at higher. There is reading, there's directed writing. This is SQA paper 1. They sit at the end of the year, the formal exam. There's also a listening exam, that's paper 2. In addition to these, there is the speaking exam, which is internally assessed by the teacher in March, and there's no proper prelim for speaking, unlike the other two papers where there is a prelim. So for the speaking first in March, it takes place in a separate room out with the class. You'll be told about the date and time of the exam in advance. It is a conversation which lasts up to 10 minutes. It will cover basically the topics that the student has learned in the language on the course, and they obviously need to have prepared a lot of things to say in advance, practice them, and so on. So as I said, it's on topics they've done in the course, and during that time they will have written paragraphs in class. It might be in their jotter, it might be on paper. They need to use that material, redraft it to get it to a good level, so it really is of higher level, using good level of language, and also to be accurate. It needs to be checked by the teacher. After that, they are then at the practice stage, where they need to work on their pronunciation to ensure it's good. Staff can help by recording their answers, their material on their phones to help them with the pronunciation at home. But they do need a lot of practice. There's a lot of memorization, because they really must know the material well so that they are confident when they go into the actual exam itself. And it is obviously worth a quarter of their grade, so it's important. Now moving on to the other skills, which are in the final exams in May or June. For reading, in the foreign language, which is essentially it's a comprehension paper where they read bits of text in the language and then answer questions in English. They will get better at this as they develop their language knowledge during higher. As the exam approaches, it's a good idea to do past papers under timed conditions, probably. They will be given some of these during the course as well. And obviously what was said earlier about learning vocabulary and revision applies to this. So linked to reading, you also have directed writing, which is a separate task, but it's part of paper 1. So directed writing is where the student writes an account in past tenses in the language, and it is about a trip that they have done as a sort of scenario they're given in the exam. There may be a choice of 2 scenarios, and they are given bullet points. There are 6 of them, which they have to include in their account of the trip. So it might be things like fairly predictable things perhaps at the beginning, like say exactly where you went and how you traveled. They might ask you to talk about how you got on with your colleagues in your work placement while you were there. The scenarios can be all different things. It could be a school trip, it could be an exchange trip, it could even be a party that they've been invited to in France, Germany, or Spain. They will get plenty of examples of material that they can use for the directed writing, covering a wide range of these scenarios, covering a wide range of bullet points. So the pupils need to be able to write accurately, using good higher level language if they want to get a good mark. Very good pupils will show that they can adapt their knowledge to cope with the unexpected. They need to basically show that they're not just rote learning and that the stuff is sort of stuck together. They need to actually show that they can be flexible in using the language, and that does take practice. For the grammar side of this, for the knowledge of the past tenses, pupils need to have a good grasp of how past tenses work in the language. Each language is obviously different, but the essential grammar part of this is knowing the verbs that they're likely to use and how to use those in past tenses. We have found that pupils in the past, when they've prepared for writing exams like this, they have sometimes found Quizlet.com or Memrise to be effective for helping them rote learn stuff that they need, and obviously study cards as well. The final skill examined is listening, and that's usually the hardest for most pupils. So they need to understand spoken language, answering questions on things they hear in English. Again, they need a wide vocabulary knowledge. They need to understand the grammar as well. Listening itself, the actual skill, takes practice, and it's good for students to listen to anything in the foreign language, whatever it is that they like. It might be music they enjoy or radio programs on topics that they're interested in. It can be really anything. It's also worth trying past papers. You can access SQA past papers for the last 3 years online. You can also access the transcript for them. They're available. It's good to note down vocab from the transcript that you found that you didn't know or that you'd forgotten.